Many coaches have this habit because they are taught so badly that they would say, hey, what is the meaning of this word? Stop using that word. Instead, ask the client, what are you experiencing when you use that word? If it's confusion, lack of clarity, or frustration, or whatever it is, there's no point in asking a cognitive question. I can go deeper into the neurosciences when Cindy asked me that question. But the sensations are the most powerful, authentic part that hits your body. So start with that if you are serious about it. But if you are not, if you're just having a time of your life playing the fool with the client, okay, ask, okay, what's the meaning of that? It's one of the worst questions that you can possibly ask. I'm sorry, I'm being very absolutely opinionated, but we truly believe that that's a foolish question to ask.
Hello, everyone, for coming today. Let us know where you're joining us from, because it's always nice to see it, and we don't always see it. So for now, we have Massachusetts, Chennai, Budapest, hello, Bangalore, San Jose, Hyderabad, Denver, woohoo, Ghana, awesome. I love it, love it, love it.
Yeah.
I am here representing Chicago. Yeah, I have nothing else to say because it's miserable, but hey, Heather's from Chicago. Heather, I'm sorry. Both of us are stuck in
we
this.
have Switzerland.
Cold in Denver. Wanda, but at least it's pretty in Denver. You can look out the window and be like, oh, look, the Rockies. Whereas I look out and black ice. That's like all that we have. Niagara Falls, awesome. So good to see everyone. I don't even know what today's topic is because I was just told to show up and say hi and compete with Ram for the shortest hair. Jerry, what's happening on your head?
Competing with you.
Pranav, excellent. I think Pranav wins.
Pranav wins, yeah, hands down. Yeah.
Hi, Pranav.
Good morning. Evening. Magda, competing with everyone on this panel except for Neha and Cindy, I think.
Yeah.
You know what? I think I'm winning with everybody in this panel because I'm cool. I know I'm not cool. I'm just trying.
You do have the best hairline. I'll give you that.
Yes, I will agree to that. But you know what? It's okay. Like I have to find ways to try to be cool because I'm definitely not cool. I'm a big nerd.
Oh, come on.
Not even a cool nerd.
Come on.
Anyway, that's okay. Nerds are the best. All right. I have nothing to add other than hello and welcome and lovely to see you, everyone. That is my role in life, and I do it proudly. So I will hand over to Cindy, whose show it is today. And Cindy, the lipstick looks amazing. You should wear lipstick more often, like dark lipstick, looking hot.
Thank you.
If any of you are interested in anything to do with coach training programs, I have to do the obligatory self-promotion reminder. Please reach out to me or to Neha. We're happy to help you and refer people to us because guess what? As we grow, we can do webinars like this and offer CCE to everybody. So even though it's shameless self-promotion is for a reason. As we grow, we can all grow as a community. So please support us if you can, where you can share our content, etc. And reach out to me, Magda at Coacharya.com. If you have any questions, suggestions, concerns, we're always here to help. So on that note, Cindy, have fun.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing that we love doing most is creating learning environments. Yeah. So, we're very appreciative of you joining us and being part of the learning environment. Today's topic is on responsiveness to client. How this coach shows up or responds to whatever client is presenting, all the opportunities that client is presenting, noticing client in their totality, the who of the client in what they want to achieve, and the progress they're making, and how they break that up into small pieces so that it becomes more achievable. I have a wonderful panel today. I'm sure you all can see. And they need no introduction to you. You know Ram. It's wonderful to have Pranav join the Masters in Coaching webinar. And he is on his MCC journey. So very soon, MCC would be behind his name. And of course, we have Jerry from Ghana, who I had the pleasure of having in my foundation cohort last year. And you would notice this about Jerry. His presence and responsiveness is amazing. Even if he says very little, you'd know that he's paying full attention to you. And of course, we have Neha, who is our taking care of us from, you know, all those little things that I would forget. Neha would pick up in the chat box, remind me, and be inclusive in the discussions wherever she wants.
Thank you, Cindy.
And Neha is also going through a coaching program now.
That's right. Neha is also in a coach training program. So let's dive into this topic. It's quite an interesting topic, quite a big topic, quite diverse. How does coach respond to the many aspects clients bring to the table? I'm going to try to break this down into smaller pieces. And I say try because the conversation is going to flow and new pieces may emerge. So I'm going to hold that frame. I'm going to hold for all the new pieces, and I'm going to hold for some structure today. And I'd like to start by asking, you know, what are your insights around responsiveness to client? And you may share from a personal insight, or you may share just what you're thinking about around the topic. Jerry, I think I'll go to you first.
Cindy, I was hoping not, but since you've come to me, I will take it. First of all, thanks for that lovely introduction, and good afternoon, good evening to all listeners. So Cindy, I think what comes to mind is, for me, is the whole essence of coaching. And if I say that, what I mean is, if you go to the core of coaching, we say that we partner with the client, you know. So I think from that perspective, in the true spirit of coaching, you as a coach is the frame of mind that you approach that whole engagement with your client. You see your client as a partner that you're going to support and guide, you know, through a journey. And for me, I think that is very, you know, fundamental to the whole coaching process. That is my reflection as I reflect upon this topic. That as a coach, what is the frame and the lens that you use in addressing a client? And I believe that gives confidence to the client from that perspective. Cindy, yeah, that's what I will say for now.
Pranav?
Sure. I was initially, when you asked the question, I was thinking about the more practical aspects of what that means in terms of responsiveness. You know, things like questioning, silence, the tactics that we employ. But after hearing Jerry saying what he said, I mean, the first thing that makes the most sense to that answer to that question is the partnership that you create with the client. And it's something that I learned to do, have learned to do over time, but it gets reinforced at the mastery level at a very, in a very significant way, that in every step of the conversation, you're partnering with the client, you're aligning with them, and you're with them on that journey. And I had to internalize that to come to the mastery level of coaching.
There's a lot of gems there which we will pick up as we go along. Ram, for you?
Sorry about that. Yeah, I'll go with the theme of partnering. I just would like to add here that I would sort of put it around the framework of Carl Rogers, where the partnering is in total client centricity, which is about unconditional positive regard, empathy, and congruence or authenticity. And it is based on extraordinarily deep listening, inquiry, and exploration. And more importantly, that partnership, apart from being equal, non-judgmental, and I would add mindless in some way, that you do not bring your own judgments and thoughts and stuff like that as a coach inside the conversation. You mentioned about the totality, and in fact, ICF, the major competency framework, refers to it in multiple spaces, and the totality is mentioned in multiple words. It's about getting into the intuitive aspects, the emotional, the somatic, the ontological, the value systems, the beliefs, assumptions, and so on. And there, what comes out for me extremely powerfully, the partnership is not merely about the conscious self of the client, but very often it's about the unconscious. And that is where the mastery of a coach is displayed. How well, and that is something later as we go along, I would like to go into more detail. And I think that's a simple difference between when you start practicing as a coach, using the competencies and markers, etc., as framework, that's all fine. Very often it's very, very cognitive. And as you move from the foundational to advanced program, you start looking at emotions. But when you go into the mastery level, then you leave, I wouldn't say leave behind, but the cognitive and the emotional parts of it are a part of the larger exploration of the somatic, kinesthetics, the energy, and so on and so forth. Are you able to commune with a client? So to me, the partnership at the mastery level of a client is about communion. It's not about conversation or communication. I'll stop there.
To all our participants, please join us. Join the questions in the chat box with your responses there. We'd love to hear what you think also. So let's dive a bit more deeper into that. When we talk about responding to the client, we all know when clients come to us, they don't tell us, this is the goal I want to work on today in one short sentence. They bring a narrative. And many times they have thought so much about what they want from coaching. There's layers and layers and layers built upon the narrative. It may have been small, but all their beliefs, thoughts, doubts, blocks, whatever gets built onto it. So when they're sitting in a session with a coach, all that flows out. I call that complexities, or that a person brings, all a part of the person. Yeah. How do we know what to pick up? I mean, that's a fair question, right? Many coaches in training ask that. What do we pick up? So much. My client said so much. What do we pick up? So to my panel, what do we pick up?
Okay, Cindy, no, thanks for that. I think you're absolutely right that this is something that even for us, when I started my coaching training, I remember during our class, we kind of asked this question. But I think it comes to the foundation of coaching. Those of us into coaching, we've been taught that you first got to establish and maintain agreements with the client. So you, with the partner with the client, to ask the client what really the client wants to achieve. If you don't mind, Cindy, I'll just share a bit of my personal experience.
Yes.
And for me, what motivated me to sign up into coaching was an experience I had with a coach. I remember doing the first coaching. He said, if you think that I'm going to tell you what to do, then I'm not the right person for you. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm only going to guide you for you to come out with your own decisions on what you have to do for yourself. You've got to take ownership. So, to your question on responding to the client and how do we unpack and really get to the core meaning of the client, what I would say is that as a coach, you've got to establish agreement as to what really the client wants to achieve. Then you reconfirms from the client, you have to reconfirm, summarize it back to the client, through your listening, that, okay, this is what I've heard you say, but you want to reconfirm to make sure that it's what really the client wants to achieve. And then there is also an aspect of exploring, where as a coach, assuming the client brings out, a particular problem or something they would like to address, and then you pick on that particular thing and then explore more. You dig a little deeper into it. You unravel it. And as you go further with that approach, someone says you touch a spot. You touch a spot where the client then really feel that, yes, that is really where I want to go. So that's how I'll respond to your question in terms of unpacking. You really got to spend time to make sure that, you really identified what truly the client wants to address, for coming to you as a coach, and then you deal with it as a journey. So I'll stop here, and I'm sure my colleagues or panelists can add to it. Thanks.
Yeah, what Jerry said is exactly word for word what I was thinking. And the first part, the agreement phase is key. And my mentor coaches, Cindy and Ram, have constructively criticized my own coaching recordings for that very piece, which is the hardest piece, the agreement phase. But the idea is that you reconfirm that the goal with the client and wait for their acknowledgement. And the other thing that I actually written down for myself to keep this current is focus on connections rather than honing in on options if the client is providing you multiple options or threads to pursue. In my experience, I've had two scenarios. One where the client says literally, I don't know what to talk about today. And inevitably, every time they say that, we end up going on a very deep journey on a topic that they themselves pick. The second is when the client picks a topic that is loaded. Recently, I had a conversation about aging and death. And as a coach, it was exciting because there were so many ways we could have gone with that conversation. And it was a test of my own learning skills to take what they were saying, but make sure that I was aligning with what they wanted to get out of that conversation, what the outcome they wanted from that conversation in that session specifically. And that was my challenge for that session. Yeah, I think that I'll stop there.
That's quite insightful, Pranav. Even I would like to just go deeper there with you and ask some questions, around your experience there. But I'll hold off because we are going to be going deeper into awareness when talking about Lassie and a few other models. So I'll hold off for that for now. Ron, what do you want to say about client presents a lot? What do coaches pick up?
Yeah, Cindy, if it's okay with you, I'll just go through some of the stuff on the chat.
Yeah.
And also parallelly answer that. Anand asked a question about, he said something about, can you try to coach? Let me be the Yoda. You don't try to coach, you either coach or you don't. So avoid the use of the word try in anything that you do, and you will automatically start being far more serious about what you're doing. Yes, if you really make coaching a part of your work and life, you don't really have to tell anybody that you're coaching. The approach will be coaching all the time. And it's a very simple practice of starting with what we call the bookends, a beginning and an end. You contract, you communicate, and you conclude. So you don't have to really tell people I'm going to coach you, so long as you have their interests at heart. Of course, at the same time, you need to respect their privacy, their confidentiality, and so on and so forth. I guess, I don't know whether that was a question, but if you're saying, hey, do I have to tell every time somebody that I'm going to coach you now, the rest of the time, I'm going to be whatever I am. I'm going to be a moron. That's a different way. I see the only two differences are that if you really coach, you become a person who's truly client-centric, who's truly other-centric. And if you're not a coach, you're not any of those. And the other one is, Manoj asked a question, should we as coaches be picking up? I'm not quite sure what that means, but what Sydney meant was really, you should be listening and observing, and that's what is picking up. If you don't do either of them, you're not a coach. And then of course you are picking up. Every single moment that you are coaching, you are listening and observing to the client. That's the fundamental principle of what we call the LASIE process, which we can go into more detail later. So you are listening to, I'm answering the part of the question that Cindy started up with. You are listening and you're observing, not merely to the cognitive words that the client is using. Many coaches have this habit because they are taught so badly that they would say, hey, what is the meaning of this word? Stop using that word. Instead, ask the client, what are you experiencing when you use that word? If it's confusion, lack of clarity, or frustration, or whatever it is, there's no point in asking a cognitive question. I can go deeper into the neurosciences when Cindy asked me that question. But the sensations are the most powerful, authentic part that hits your body. So start with that if you are serious about it. But if you're not, if you're just having a time of your life playing the fool with the client, okay, ask, okay, what's the meaning of that? It's one of the worst questions that you can possibly ask. I'm sorry, I'm being very absolutely opinionated, but we truly believe that that's a foolish question to ask. We can go one better. What are you feeling? Even that, I think, is not a good enough question. Very often it's asked out of context. Oh, what are you feeling now? The client may turn around and really say, I'm being bored. So what are you going to answer then? If the client has said something with a context and say, in respect of this context, when you said this, what exactly are you experiencing? And that includes feeling, that includes thinking. That's a somatic ontological exploration. And somebody asked later, Kathleen, related question, choices to the client, and the client, Anand said something about what if the client doesn't know? That's exactly what Pranav was answering. You never know. Assume always that you know the client doesn't know what the client wants to be. The simple definition of coaching is this. A client comes to you as a coach in a disempowered state. And if the client is disempowered, something tangible, something obvious, the current reality is disempowering because of those kind of things, the client can go to a friend, a grandmother or a granduncle, a mentor, and to talk about it and see what the tangible obstacles on the pathway are. But very often, these obstacles are lying within. They are our limiting beliefs. And they are part of our unconscious. And that is why you need a coach. And therefore, the client is never going to be aware what really needs to happen. That's your job as a coach, to explore. And so you start with simple things like, okay, what is happening now in your current reality? And then from there, move on to observing and listening to those disempowering expressions of the client. It may be in words, it may be in voice tone, it may be in gestures, many things. And say, hey, what are you experiencing as I observe these things that you are doing? And that will bring out something deep within the client slowly. And then you ask about, so what's really happening out there? What needs to happen for you to feel better, to get to a more comfortable position? That's a starting point of the establishment of a contract. And then you go deeper. Why is that meaningful? What value does it have? What are the challenges, limiting beliefs? And then come back again to definition of the outcome. Having understood this, what is it that you're really looking for? The establishment of a contract is not coaching the markers. 4 questions. Okay, what is it that you want to achieve in this session? How would you evidence this session? What is the importance of it? And what are the challenges? Okay, forget it at the ACC level. I won't even mark you as a good enough person for PCC. You need to explore. This is what Cindy keeps telling everybody right from the beginning. Explore, explore, explore. The first 20 minutes, just do that. And then you will come to a decent enough contracting, a decent enough understanding, clarity in terms of what the client wants. And essentially, there are 2 things that need to come out. The value that the client is looking for in terms of the importance and the meaning, and the limiting beliefs which are challenging him. The deeper exploration of the conflict, the dissonance between the value systems and the beliefs is what a coach is being paid for. And to be able to create the awareness as to this is what is happening. And once the client gets awareness, the client moves into action. So I'll stop here.
So coaches, you probably, if you're wondering about this, what Ram has just said, there's a reason why we do that, right? There's a reason why when the client comes into the session and just presents something and say, that's what I want to work on. And if coach takes that and just says, okay, so that's your session goal. What's going to tell you it's successful for you, and just go on with the markers? Now, that is what client was always thinking about before the session. That's what client brought to the session. As a coach, I'd question myself, what value did this client get out of coaching? Because they're leaving with what they brought. So the depth of what Ram is talking about, a bit more exploring until you present to the client, all these pieces are showing up and they all seem to have significance or value, whatever the word is for you, which is a piece you'd like to work on today. And the others will carry over to the next session or something like that. So there's if you're in doubt, sometimes just sit down quietly and ask yourself, what is the purpose of this marker or this competency? Why are we doing it? Pranav, you want to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, although now I have several things, so let me pick the one that was first for me.
Yeah.
That's okay, Cindy?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I picked up on one thing that Ram said that I thought was would be good to comment on is the exploring, not knowing piece. For me, when you get into that phase where you're asking the questions and listening and observing, not knowing where it's going to go, that confusion, that dissonance is actually, I think, where the flow lies. It is probably the most difficult part, but it's also where there is a flow. That's what I've learned from my time and at the mastery level of coaching. There was a question about somatic responses, and that is also part of this comment, is that what are somatic responses? So what are the question, it's watching the client, is observing what they're saying, their tone, their gestures, shifts in emotions, and calling those out and asking them what they're experiencing or feeling, the words that Ram used. That is a somatic question. And Sydney, to your last point, I use the word flow, and for all those that are musicians out there, this analogy might be useful for them. I think of the whole system of a coaching session. There's a structure. It's like playing in a jazz band. There's a structure, there are markers, et cetera, et cetera. What you do within that structure, the improvisation, the tactics, all of that leads to the flow, so that at some point you're in the pocket with the client, sort of playing the instrument or playing the music. And once you achieve a level of skill, that becomes more and more often, more common, more often. And I'm waiting for myself for that moment to happen, but that's kind of how I'm viewing each and every coaching session, is that I get to that point with the client, to that connection. That's all.
It's a lovely analogy there. So we're talking about this. I want to pick up on this. The said, what's said in the session and what's unsaid. Yeah, coaches on the call, please type in the chat box. And, your thoughts are valuable. How do we pick up the unsaid? Or what is this unsaid we're talking about? What is the unsaid? And how do we, listen, when I say pick up, I'm using words like notice, observe, curious about. I've summarized it into pick up. Now, how are we curious about? How do we notice all those other pieces showing up in the client, except the said words, what the client is saying? That's lovely. And clients are hesitant. Ram, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. The one thing that resonated for me when Pranav used the analogy of music, I think in very simple terms, good coaching is like jazz. I'm not a musician by any chance, Pranav is, but I'm a lover of jazz. And the beauty of jazz is that even the player doesn't know what the player is going to sing. It's pure improvisation. And in all music, even classical music, like an Indian tradition of Hindustani and Carnatic music, that improvisation is the heart and the essence of the music. There are scales, all that's set, but how do you go about it is not knowing. And that's really what needs to happen in coaching. And you don't have to remember the 8 competencies of the framework. You don't have to remember the 37 or 40 markers. You need to remember simply a few acronyms we will sort of come to a little bit later, but simply 3 essential buckets of contracting, communicating, and concluding. That is what all coaching is about. Coaching at its heart is extremely, extremely simple. You need to contract a clear outcome for the client, and you need to explore with the client a little bit in the beginning. I would say that if you're having a 45 minutes conversation, I'm giving it to you in bits and pieces so that you can actually apply it in your regular coaching. If it's 45 minutes, 15 minutes each. For the contracting, 15 minutes, for the deeper exploration, and 15 minutes towards the end outcome. And in the first part of that exploration, for the contracting, you can use a simple mnemonic acronym, whatever you want to call it, DEMO. The D stands for a desired outcome that the client wants to achieve, which the client will never be able to put down in the beginning. And then the evidencing that, I'm going with the markers, evidencing what would show up at the end of the session as achievement of that desired outcome. The third is M, which is a meaning, purpose, what I would call value from a Jungian Freudian point of view, which lies at the heart of it. And then finally, O, the obstacles, the challenges, which are often the limiting beliefs. And as I said earlier, you're never going to be able to pick up this in one shot. If you do, you're not coaching. Like Pranav said, it's about not knowing. So you ask a question, believe you me, Cindy and I have coached literally several thousand hours and trained people. If there's a real coaching, not a fake peer coaching kind of a stuff, and you come with a, fake agenda for the session, and just because you want to practice, that's different. You do what you want. But if you go to a real life client, the client knows the disempowering reality extremely well, but not how do I get out of it. So the client is not going to be able to tell you what is my outcome, but the client would be able to tell you what is my current reality. As Whitmore said in the GROW model, the R stands for the reality. So somebody asked about how do you do somatics, and that, just like Pranav said, I hear the client saying, oh, I'm struggling with this. I'm confused. This relationship sucks. I'm constantly in this receiving end of it, and et cetera, et cetera. So just simply acknowledge, listen and observe and see what's the voice tone, what's the energy, where's the client coming from? That's what empathy is about. Put yourself in the shoes of the client. And that's a framework that we have, LASIE, listen and observe to the verbal and non-verbal cues. And the client likes to be heard. And not only that, the client likes to be told that he or she is heard. So acknowledge and appreciation. I hear you using these words, and I understand what you're going through, and I would like to support you. And then you share what you are sensing non-judgmentally. I see that you seem to be helpless, or you seem to be struggling. It is not leading. You're not saying to the client, this is what you're doing. I sense that. So you can correct me if I'm wrong. Non-judgmentally. And that sensing and sharing is extremely important. Those of you who have any understanding of supervisory framework, the sixth I of the supervisory framework is a most important part of the supervisory framework, where the supervisor shares what's happening out there non-judgmentally with the coach. And similarly here, you can share what you are sensing with a client as well. And you gently then start inquiring, and then if necessary, going into deeper exploration. As you are saying this, as you are saying, I'm struggling, can you for a moment look within yourself and tell me where you are feeling this, how you're feeling this, what does it feel like? If you're feeling it as something, an object, is it fluid? Is it solid? Is it something where it is sitting? What texture, what color? Doesn't matter. The client knows, believe you me, this is extremely important. And somebody asked me the other day, so you say that coaches need to know about psychology and so on. Not only psychology, of course you need to know about psychology because you are looking into the behavior of another person. If you don't understand the basics of psychology, don't be a coach. And I would be saying that you understand what is neurosciences. Neurosciences tell you today that the first thing that hits you, hits your brain, hits your mind, hits your body from the sensory, which is the visual cortex at the back, the auditory in the side, kinesthetic all over your body. And those are the true authentic data which hit you, the billions of them every second. And those affect you in different parts of the body. And those are unadulterated, unfiltered. They reach the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus refers to the hippocampus. Compare it with past experiences. And then it comes back to the amygdala. And there is an emotional label that is given to. That's a second level after a filtration. So emotions are not as authentic as sensations are. And then finally, it goes to the frontal cortex to take a decision. And that is when thinking happens. It's a second level filtration. It's totally inauthentic. Often it lies. So if the body is really concerned about your welfare, if it's a survival, the fight or flight reaction, It gets passed on directly from the hypothalamus as it comes from the sensory triggers, directly into the your, what do you call it, the pituitary organ, which is the central of all the glands, and then it goes into the adrenaline, what's called the HPA axis. These are all very, very simple neuroscience principles. Read Bruce Lipton, Biology of Beliefs, and so on. You'll understand a lot more of it. If you combine it, you can easily put it into coaching. So in coaching, the first thing that you go for is not the thoughts. Don't ever ask a person, what are your thoughts on this? The client is going to assume the client is going to tell you a lie, because that's what the client would like other people to believe. But on the other hand, if you notice, if Cindy said, pick up, observe, those sensory triggers, the body movements, the facial expressions, or even better, ask the client, what are you experiencing in your body? And gradually the client will start talking about it. As the client talks about it, it's a healing process. The somatic process is a healing process. The reliving is a relieving process. That itself will create an awareness inside the client. And this, it is not as goofy as it sounds. Initially, you're going to find it difficult. Instead of asking the client, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? Asking, what are you experiencing? Oh, duh. But you can talk to the client before, saying, this is the reason why I'm doing it. I do that with all my clients. I'm going to take you through that process. And I would like you to be familiar with it, because this is what is going to help you. So that is the LASI process. Listen and observe, acknowledge and appreciation, sense what you share, what you sense, and finally listen. The I and E, they inquire and explore using sensations, emotions, and thoughts. And once you have that awareness, it's very easy. It's A. You have the awareness, ask the client, what's your awareness about yourself? How would you apply it to the situation? And what is the outcome that comes out of it in terms of the desire that you have? So from the awareness, you move into action, and then ask the client, okay, what may be holding it back? What is it that you need to support? How are you going to follow up on this, which is the anchoring, and finally end up with appreciation. If you just follow this process, the 13 words I have used, DEMO for contracting, LASIE for the communication, AAAA, totally 13, you will be a master of coaching in no time. And while you're doing it, respect the client. Speak 20% of the time. Use all your sensory organs to observe what the client is saying, not just listen through the ears. Watch with your eyes. Hear with for the voice tone. Don't interrupt the client. Be completely respectful of the client. Good luck to you. Dance with the client and go not knowing. Thanks.
Thanks, Ram. It's a lot of value there. So coaches, I'm sure as you are sitting here thinking about your responsiveness to your clients, and you may be thinking about specific incidents or learning moments for yourself. And I'm sure you're also trying to figure out, what core competencies are we talking about here? Responsiveness to client. You may also come up with your own answers that we're talking about all the core competencies, right? All of them shows up in how we respond to the client. So we don't really need to keep the focus on the core competencies and markers so much as we do to the way we engage with, listen to, and pick up opportunities that the client is presenting and ask some questions or do some kind of exploring around that. I'm going to ask for some personal examples. Maybe in working with a coach or supporting profession, did you receive anything that you went home and said, wow, this is the moment? You know, the coach asked me that, and this made the biggest difference for me. Yeah, What is your big moments in coaching or any other support profession? Jerry?
Cindy, thanks. Ram got me stand. Very powerful insight that he shared over there. So thanks, Ram. And I picked one word that he used, and he said, in coaching, use all your sensory. I thought that was very deep. I thought that was very deep. And Cindy, you're right that we've been equipped with tools. And the tools are just guide for us as coaches. It's important you bring your personal self to it. And I think that is what brings the difference. In the office environment, and for me, being a banker and doing sales, what I've realized is that it's extremely important that you connect with people. Connecting is extremely important. Each time I come across a client, I realize that what carries the conversation to the next level is your ability to connect, with the client, and you go through the markets. I think if you look at, for instance, cultivating trust and safety, it's one of the markets that builds trust through the coaching process. Also maintaining presence, where what you do is, you practice silence, you practice pause, and then you practice reflection. These are things that makes the client feel that he or she is really connected to you, and that rapport then sort of takes it to another level. I just want to share an experience that I had with a colleague, and the person did not even approach for coaching. The person approached for a conversation, and as we had the conversation, and as I was listening, deeply engaged and listening, I realized there was something deeper within the person. So after very deep listening, I asked one question to this individual, and the person paused for a couple of seconds, and all I saw was tears dripping, off the person's face. And I paused for quite a long time, and this continued for a very long time. Then the person said, "Why did you ask that question? Where did that question come from?" So that question was not really part of that conversation, but it just dawned on me, right? And that is why I was saying it's important you connect with people in the act of coaching. And if you go through the markets, which is cultivating trust, maintaining presence, active listening, if you really reflect on these markers and imbibe, the various points, and that I think it equips you to do that. So with this story, I'm saying, this person then cried after a very long period and asked me that, where did that question come from? Then I asked the person that, how did you feel about that question? And then the person said, you just touch a nerve, something that nobody knows. Even my partner at home doesn't know, is not aware, but you just touched on that thing which is bothering me, which I've marked up that people don't see. And you've touched that I have to open up and sort of share that with you and have a conversation. So Cindy, I think that is an experience I just wanted to share, and engaging someone. And I felt that, this also comes through the art of coaching. But I have also personally had an experience with a coach, and it was so beautiful that after the coach listened to me, after some time, the coach made suggestion, and it comes with the coaching practice, where the coach then said that, if you wouldn't mind, I have a material on meditation that I felt will be helpful for you. After he shared that with me, and after using it and practicing it, it really, really made a difference. So I think it's also another aspect in coaching where we can offer extra resources to people or to our client, where we believe that those will add value to our client. So Cindy, I'll stop here. I think those are two experiences I wanted to share with audience. Thanks.
Yeah, that's lovely, Jerry. Because yeah, it just reminds me that coaching is a beautiful dance between coach and client, partnering and co-creating in that moment to the bigger picture of what the client wants. It's lovely because, you know, the examples, both examples indicate to that little moment where evoking awareness begin to emerge, you know, and that client or colleague that asked you, how did you know to ask me that? Now, I want to check with you as you're listening to us and, you know, in your own thoughts, is any question showing up for you or anything you want to say?
The line that really struck me and I feel is so relevant here was, I don't know where we are going, but I know exactly how to get there. And it just sounds like it, when I listen to each of you, that's the sensation that I get, that you're all, you know exactly how to get there. and I hope I can pick up some of that and learn too. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. Pranav?
So the theme that I'm hearing a lot here is connecting, right? And I think that's a key piece to this. There has to be an authenticity and empathy that you're able to connect with the client, or else you're not going to get any of that somatic. You're just not going to get a whole lot from them unless they trust you. And I wanted to say this because I have some experience both on the consumer side and the practitioner side between coaching and therapy. And before Ram and I even started Coacharya, I actually went to a coach, completely unrelated. I was in a career transition, and I think she charged somewhere in the range of $400 for 45 minutes, and it was entirely transactional. Literally at the 45-minute mark, she would cut me off. She would not remember me from one session to the other. The point is, I'm only relaying this negative experience because the client knows and understands and feels just like the coach does. And if you're not creating that connection with them, it's not going to go anywhere. And to that point, a resource I wanted to share, I watched a movie recently that I think would be useful for all the coaches out there. It's called Nightmare Alley. In the US here, it's on HBO Max. It has an ensemble cast, and it has Bradley Cooper playing a carnival con man with extraordinary powers of observation, which is what allows him to be a con man. And Kate Blanchett playing a psychologist that plays into the con man's game. And I thought it was really cool to watch them go at it because of the way that they read people. And it was fascinating. It's also a good example of what not to do, coach, to misuse those skills and those powers and those talents. And I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there. Nightmare Alley.
That's beautifully said. Yeah. Yeah. You know, I'm not any expert in picking up or doing some body sensory work. But of course, I'm quite good at picking up on and engaging with clients. And a few weeks ago, I was coaching a colleague who spoke about another colleague, who was overwhelmed. I mean, that thing was coming across repeatedly, the overwhelmed feeling that she was experiencing in multiple ways. And there was one part of the coaching when she said, this is a quiet moment between her and I, very flat, quiet. And she said, you know, it's all these butterflies in my tummy, Cindy. They're a complete mess all over the place. And in that quiet moment, I just asked out of intuitiveness, and what would happen if they settle down? And she said, "It formed a straight line." And I go, "Straight line?" And she said, "Yes, soldiers." And I asked, "Soldiers?" And of course, the conversation continued. But I would have not known, continued into protecting her from all these overwhelms. I would have never known that that was showing up for that client until you really pay attention to that moment, what the client is saying in that moment and how to engage with it. And it's no rocket science. You don't need to put beautiful string of words together to make questions. You just need to be present to that moment and use your intuitiveness that I believe all coaches have. We're almost at the end of our webinar, and I think we have a lot more that we'd love to say. So I'm going to take it to my panel for a round of words of wisdom. Ram, starting with you. We got 5 minutes left. What do you want to leave everybody with, Ram?
Yeah, I mean, again, let me just start with a couple of questions which have been asked. Anand asks, is meditation, would it be leading or a solution? No, meditation is a process. It's just what creates awareness. As long as a client is willing to look at meditation, and it has to be non-denominational, simple breath meditation, something like that would certainly work. There's nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with it. Rajesh asked something about somatic sensations. And I just want to link that with the last words that Cindy talked about. It's all what happens in a moment. Cindy, I don't remember, who was it? Shanaz, I remember, was the person.
Yes.
That just, who was a coach?
Yes.
Who was the coach?
Shanaz.
No. Shanaz was not the coach. Shanaz was a person.
It was a supervisor. What's her name? Yeah, your colleague that Ram.
Yeah, from UK. Sorry, I don't know how I can forget her name. But anyway, all that she did was, Shanaz was holding her hands like this or something of that sort. And she just started asking her, hey, I see that you are holding your hands like this. And what's really happening with you? And within a few moments, Shanaz's hands opened up. And then she talked about what was in her mind and how it got relieved by doing that. And that's really what somatic exploration does, sensory exploration does. Because it really gets into the heart of the issue, the gut of the issue, inside the body, and in the present moment. And you are able to experience what is happening to you at that point in time. So forget about a coach outside. All that you need to do next time that you feel upset about something, you are angry, you're frustrated, you are helpless, or whatever it is, you are being invalidated, you hear something that doesn't sound right, just go into yourself for a few moments. In silence, try and feel how you feel, what you're experiencing. Where is it happening? Is it in your heart? Is it in your gut? Is it somewhere else? If it's in your head, don't worry. It's a figment of your imagination. If it's real, it'll manifest below the throat. So in your torso somewhere. And just that, you will find the power of it is that reliving that experience relieves you. It's a healer. And as a coach, you can use that enormously powerfully. The client doesn't know, you don't know, but the client's body knows. So that's the last word I want to leave with.
Pranav.
So I will leave with 3 things that I've written down for myself and marked in bold. And I want to be transparent. They come from Cindy and Ram. And I'm just trying to execute on them. The first is search for alignment of value, which is the aspiration, and belief, which is often the limiting system. The second is when there's a lack of clarity. If you hear a lack of clarity, fully explore that lack of clarity. And the third is always hold back and let the client reflect. And mostly that can be achieved through simple act of silence. That's it.
Jerry?
Thanks, Cindy. I think I will just connect back to what I said, that in today's world, I believe connecting is extremely important. And I just want to share what one of the big names we know on empathy or emotional intelligence, Daniel Goleman, I'm sure most people on this webinar is aware of him, teaches on, and which is cognitive emotional empathy, and empathic concern. That it's really important as coaches to pick some of these extra skills. Empathy has become extremely important in our world today. And it's not just, looking at the cognitive, which is understanding the person's view of life, or the emotional empathy, where you sense, what is going around the person's world. Empathic concern is saying that, listen, I'm predisposed to help you. I'm not just, able to read what is happening to you, but if you need me to offer help, I'm happy to lend a hand to support you. So I feel I should leave that 3 points. That is important for coaches to imbibe, some of these emotional intelligence in what we do. Thank you, Cindy.
Yeah, absolutely love that. And we've come to the end, but we could really explore that, because that empathy you're talking about is such a basis, such a strong connection to trust and safety in coaching. And it's we can see globally around the world how much it's needed, empathy. So coaches, thank you for being with us. Neha, is there anything you want to say to complete?
I'm good. I don't think I can top that. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here.
Cindy, just an observation.
Yeah,
Somebody asked here about, when I said you need to understand psychology, I didn't mean that you have a degree or a certificate in psychology. I don't have one. Whatever knowledge I have about psychology or neurosciences or spirituality is something that I have picked up by reading and viewing. That's all that you require. And there are very many simple things Neha can send you references, a lot in the Coacharya blog. And finally, coming back to what Jerry said, one of the things that you talked about connecting, okay, I'll use another word called engagement. The most important thing that corporates need today is engagement, engaging with people. And what you mean by connecting is exactly the same. And you can do it in everyday conversations. How do you review? How do you conduct meetings? How do you talk to one another? That's all that's required. So long as you have the interest. And that's what is spirituality. To me, spirituality means, how can I connect with a person outside? That's a systemic spirituality of what connection is. Thanks. Thanks for all of you joining, and wonderful listening.
Thank you, everyone. Lovely being with all of you. See you next one.